You know, lately I've been thinking a lot about what my favorite console is. It's a question that I haven't really thought about too much until recently, which is weird, isn't it? You'd think it'd come up a lot more, seeing as I've been playing video games for pretty much my entire life. When faced with this question, there were a good few consoles that came to mind, but after some consideration, they all fell short in one way or another. First, let's get the obvious out of the way. The Wii was my first console, so it'll always have a very special place in my heart. However, a lot of the games on here really try to make use of the Wii's motion control capabilities, with very mixed results. At its best, it adds another layer of interactivity to the game, and it truly enhances the experience. At its most okay, it's pretty unobtrusive and harmless, and at its worst, it's Sonic and the Secret Rings. Fun fact, I got this game with my Wii, which by extension makes it my first Sonic game, and how I wasn't immediately scared off from the series is beyond me. The Switch is great for what I personally want in a modern console, but I feel like not enough time has passed for it to really build up that oh-so-powerful nostalgia factor. I've been collecting for the PS1 recently, and it's been an absolute blast, but the PS2 is probably going to take its place once I'm able to pick one of those up. Oh, and also I didn't grow up with it, so get in the corner. But among all of these options, one system stands above all others with its amazing library of games, backwards compatibility with another great systems library, and a hefty dose of personal bias. And let's not waste any more time, you saw the thumbnail, you know it's the 3DS. While it wasn't my first console, it was my third, it's definitely the system I played the most growing up, so it still occupies a similar spot as the Wii to me. But what exactly was it that made the 3DS so special to me back then? What did it have that the Wii and Wii U didn't? Well, it could play Pokemon. That was pretty much the reason why basically everyone I knew in like 3rd grade needed a 3DS, including me. Growing up, much like any other child, I loved Pokemon. I watched the anime, collected the cards, and read the guidebooks. But one thing that I was missing was the games. And I was perfectly content with that for a while, but after the 5th viewing of the same goddamn Omega Ruby Let's Play, I realized I couldn't keep living like this. I did have Pokepark for the Wii, and dear god, I hope that's not what I'm going to be remembered for. Now, don't get me wrong, Pokepark's a solid time, but I think you can understand why I wanted something a bit more, and the 3DS gave me that and then some. Not only did it have the ORAS games, the main ones I was hoping to play, but I could also play the DS games that I missed out on through backwards compatibility. Oh, and X and Y were there too, I guess. Even back then I wasn't really a huge fan of Kalos. But Pokemon isn't the only thing the 3DS had, far from it. While it's definitely what I played the most growing up, the 3DS's library was solid enough to satisfy me as I grew a bit older and my eyes started to wander away from Pokemon. But to talk about that, I want to talk a bit more about the 3DS's competition and what made its library so special. Well, I say competition, but in truth, the 3DS pretty much ran without any during its lifetime. It was up against the Vita, but I don't think anyone has ever used the words Vita and success in the same sentence, so the 3DS basically owned the handheld gaming market from 2011 to early 2017. Well, a little less so in 2011, the system had a little bit of a rough start. But what about this fact made the 3DS's library so special? After all, there were a good handful of games that were released on both the 3DS and the Vita. While this is true, both libraries are very much their own thing, much more than most other competing systems. If there was a game that was on the 3DS that you wanted to play, chances are you needed a 3DS to play that game. The Vita was definitely meant to feel a little bit more like a home console on the go rather than a dedicated portable system. All it takes is one look at the library to see what I mean. I mean, come on man, they got Minecraft on here. A decent version of Minecraft on here. From what I can tell, if a game was being developed as a handheld experience, it was most likely being developed for the 3DS. The Vita had its exclusives, no doubt, but a lot of them were a bit more niche experiences. Look, I like Danganronpa as much as the next guy, but you're gonna have a real hard time selling that to a 9-year-old whose favorite Pokemon is Mudkip. This gave the 3DS a vast library of unique experiences you couldn't really find anywhere else, alongside a hefty amount of familiar franchises all flourishing on the system. Just off the top of my head, we saw the introduction of personal favorites of mine like the Yokai Watch series, which are all great games. I remember there being quite a bit of buzz surrounding this series when it first came out. Finally, someone was willing to take a bite out of Pokemon. Never mind. Here's a weird one. Puzzle & Dragon Z plus Puzzle & Dragon Super Mario Edition. Well, now I know what I'm naming my firstborn. This was a version of the Puzzle & Dragons games starring Mario characters bundled in with Puzzle & Dragon Z, which as far as I can tell was never released separately outside of Japan. Outside of that, what do you really want me to say about this game? You're the one that brought it up. I mean, look at me. Do I look like I would even know what a puzzle or dragon is? Moving on, there was Fantasy Life, which was a game I really, really wanted back in the day. I did end up getting it, but I don't really remember getting all that far into it. Turns out it's just not really my thing. Although the people that like this game really seem to like it, so clearly there's just something here that I'm not getting. I ended up trading in the game before I really settled on forever cursing my shelf space. Although it is getting a sequel later this year on the Switch, so that's pretty neat. The 3DS was also where we in the West are first exposed to the Little Battlers experience games, just this one to be exact. There were games before this on the PSP, but the 3DS game was the only one to leave Japan 3 years after its release. It was brought overseas alongside the anime and manga. This seems like it was meant to be some sort of big push to get LBX more popular with Western audiences. I don't think it worked out all that well, which is a shame. I mean, I remember seeing a commercial for this game when I was a kid and really wanting it. Building your own robots and fighting with them? That sounds badass, no one's ever done that before. After getting this game for my birthday, shortly after getting my 3DS, I learned what disappointment truly felt like. I'm mostly kidding, of course. It's not a bad game, it's pretty alright, just not nearly as cool as the premise seemed to me at the time. The robot designs are pretty sick though, I even built one of the model kits. I could keep listing standalone titles, but I'm really itching to talk about some Fire Emblem, and when that happens, there's nothing you can do to stop me. Believe me, many have tried. The 3DS was the main hub for Fire Emblem content during this time period, marking its most successful era at the time. We got 3 mainline releases on the 3DS, starting with Awakening. This game is widely credited for saving the franchise after a streak of poorly selling titles, and yeah, it did, it'd be stupid to debate that. I can see why, it's a fairly solid game, not the series' best by any means, but it's much more approachable than the other games that came before, making it a great jumping on point for newcomers. Boom, B tier. A few years after Awakening, we would get Fates, a dual release, kind of a weird decision for the series, but sales-wise it seems to have paid off, slightly outselling Awakening. Gameplay-wise, Fates is pretty much a direct improvement over Awakening in every way imaginable, making it far more balanced than the power fantasy that was Awakening. Pair up? Balanced. Reclassing? Balanced. Map design? Actually challenging. Well, at least in Conquest, Birthright was a lot more casual focused, so the maps were a little simpler and a fair bit easier. However, Fates' writing is pretty widely panned and is considered the series' worst, and I can't really debate that. I'm no professional writing critic, but even I can tell this isn't great. A and C tier respectively. For the series' third and final game on the 3DS, they went out with an absolute bang with Echoes, a remake of Gaiden on the Famicom. Spoiler alert, this is my favorite in the series. I absolutely love it. Yeah, I know it's not perfect, but I don't care. Sure, some of the maps might suck absolute ass, but I honestly find most of them to be pretty inoffensive. And the overall presentation of this game is top-notch, with easily the best soundtrack and art in the entire series. Unlike Fates, the story and dialogue are actually pretty well written as well. Also, strangely enough, I actually really like the gameplay systems here. They're super different from the rest of the series, but that's what makes them so neat. Can you tell this was my first in the series? Ah shit, I gotta stop talking about the series before the rest of you guys click off. What can I do to wake you guys back up? Hey, Kirby had some pretty good games on here, right guys? We got 3 Kirby games on here, 2 of which I'm willing to recognize. Both Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot are great games, especially Planet Robobot. It's easily my favorite in the series. And much like most historical events, Kirby Battle Royale was also there. I could keep talking games for hours, but let's get right to the question you were all asking. Say it with me now. What if I don't give 2 shits about Rabbids Rumble, and I own a 3DS? Well, there's gotta be some overlap. Well, don't you worry, because the 3DS has you, well, covered might not be the best word for it, held captive. The 3DS came pre-installed with a good handful of software. Let's talk about it. First up, we got Face Raiders. Find a victim, take a picture, and they'll appear as an enemy in the game. It's a super simple game that makes use of the 3DS's camera, but it's pretty cute for what it is. Next up, we got AR games. Quick, did you remember your AR cards? Okay, moving on. Alright, this next one's actually pretty cool. The Mii Plaza. The 3DS had this little feature called Street Pass, which allowed you to share certain content in games with other 3DS owners you passed out in the real world, and the Mii Plaza let you use their Miis in a variety of games. They did this with the console that also had Rabbids Rumble. I don't think they thought that through. In all seriousness though, this was a super cool feature. Just hopping onto the Mii Plaza, seeing a few more Miis show up, and then trying them out and finding me only to watch them get completely destroyed and cursing the creators' bloodlines was a blast back in the day. There were 13 games in total that you could play, but only 2 were included right off the bat, those being Find Me and Puzzle Swap. There isn't a whole lot to say about Puzzle Swap. You can choose one puzzle piece from each of the Miis you meet and add them to your own puzzles. I guess it wasn't entirely correct calling this a game, it's more of a social experience. Or experiment, depending on how you look at it. Hey, this fucking dweeb doesn't have the Mario puzzle completed! What a loser! He should be ashamed! And then there was Find Me, and this I'm pretty into. The Miis you meet are added to your party, and then they all try their best to fight through floors of enemies. Although their best sucks ass, so you gotta get as many as possible to get to the end. There isn't really much depth to the battles themselves. The only thing you can really do is choose between attacking and using a Mii's preset spell to hopefully do something. Despite this, it's pretty great for what it is and does a great job showing what Street Pass can be used for. Although I think it might have done a bit too good of a job. Pretty much everyone I knew who used the Mii Plaza never bought any of the other games and just stuck with Find Me. To be fair, why would you? Find Me is pretty much all you need. It even got a stage in Smash Bros. Suck it, Ninja Launcher. Now this is all well and good, but the Mii Plaza is pretty useless without a Mii to draft. Well, that's where the Mii Maker comes in. Miis have been a staple of Nintendo consoles ever since the Wii, with many thinking that the Mii Maker itself peaked on that system. Now me, I'm no connoisseur of character creators, so I don't really have all that much to add to the conversation. What I can tell you is that my eyes completely glossed over all menu options in the Wii. If it wasn't Despicable Me the game, then I didn't care. The 3DS was the only system I had that I actually used the Mii Maker on as a young kid, and let me tell you, it sure is a character creator, and a pretty good one at that. Now, maybe it's because I was too young to really get anything out of it on the Wii, where many claim it's at its best, but I never really understood the hype around the Mii Maker. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a great piece of software, but how excited do you expect me to get over this? Holy shit, the pants can be brown? Alright, point taken. Alright, now what else can I talk about with this system? Oh yeah, the 3D. For how hard the 3D was pushed initially, pretty much everyone I knew completely forgot about it. Hell, even I forgot about it while writing the script. After using it, yeah, it sure is a 3D display. Fun fact, my 3DS's 3D slider stopped working on the rare occasion that it was at full and it wouldn't turn off, so I had to disable the 3D and parental controls myself. You're looking at a registered parent right here. But yeah, looking at the games I have, none of them really seem to benefit from the 3D. I mean, Mario 3D Land supposedly works pretty well, but I don't have that game, so get off my ass. And that's all I really have to say about the 3DS for now. It's a great little system, enough for me to call it my favorite. Although, looking at it as a whole for this video, I've realized that, while great, it doesn't do as much to cement itself as one of the all-time greats as I thought it did. Now, when talking about your favorite system, nostalgia beats everything, so don't expect its placement as my favorite system of all time to change anytime soon. Well, maybe for the Wii, but we'll see. Hey, it's me, the guy who made the video you just watched. I've been sitting on this script for about a month now, just trying to work up the courage to make it, and if you're seeing it, then I guess I did. If you enjoyed it, please do consider leaving a like, subscribing, and or leaving a comment, but I won't force you. That's currently beyond my means, but it won't be like that forever.